Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm José.
And we've just been to see Eddington, written and directed by Ari Aster, who made his debut with Hereditary in 2018, which we saw twice for the podcast. We saw once for the podcast, but spoke about it twice, because we spoke with horror guru Matt Denny. Then he made Midsummer and Beau is Afraid, neither of which I've seen. You've seen at least Midsummer.
I have seen Midsummer, which I quite liked. And I think I've also seen Beau is Afraid, though I can't remember it very vividly now.
I sort of avoided him after Hereditary a little bit because I thought, this guy's taking the piss. Because the first half of Hereditary was so interesting and so good, this incredible sort of family drama. And then it just lost the plot in the second half when you're going into the surreality, the otherworldly shit, the magic. I just thought, I'm not interested in this. It's not for me.
Well, I think I'm going to avoid him from now on. So.
Well, it's interesting because I think this is a really ambitious film, and this kind of gets me. A lot of this really made me think about what I liked about Hereditary, and then a lot of the rest of it made me think about what I didn't like so much about Hereditary, I suppose. But this is a real kind of state of America movie. It's one of these that kind of tries to build a tapestry about all things America, and it's very particularly set during the first COVID lockdowns, which America had a very particular relationship with because of freedom and you can't tell me what to do and all that kind of stuff. And we see elements of that represented here. I mean, COVID is this kind of bellwether moment in history that most film and TV has decided to pretend hasn't happened. And this one is the opposite. It is all about that era and what that era was like and what it meant. And it's it's not just about COVID, but it's about a world in which everyone's living online, everyone's expressing themselves online, you're constantly distracted by what's online, conspiracy theory is everywhere, you're not really meant to trust anything, or people are constantly encouraging you not to trust anything, that kind of thing. So it's set in what is, I think, a fictional town in New Mexico called Eddington, where Joaquin Phoenix plays Joe Cross, who's the sheriff. Pedro Pascal plays Ted Garcia, who is the current mayor, and he's running for re-election. And the mayor has just brought in mask mandates. Again, this is a huge thing in America. Do you obey the mask mandate? How can they take away your freedom? All that kind of thing. He's brought in the mask mandate at the behest of, I think it's a state level law. And Joaquin Phoenix disagrees with it. And through one thing or another, the film kind of develops sort of gradually and in various different directions. Joaquin Phoenix kind of abruptly announces on Instagram that he's going to run for mayor against Pedro Pascal. But I mean, that is like the minimum bit of summing up you can do with this film, because it has all these different strands, a lot of different characters intersecting, playing different parts in different stories, huge amount going on. Joaquin Phoenix lives with his wife, played by Emma Stone, who's kind of reclusive, and there's kind of intimations that she is an abuse victim, abused by her dad, and her mother, who was meant to live there for a little bit, has also been living there for quite a lot longer, and is a conspiracy theory kind of addict. It's constantly talking about these things. There's the growing Black Lives Matter kind of movement. We see the death of George Floyd well, not the death of George Floyd, but his death plays a part in the film, in the growing riots, which make their way into Eddington. And there's a huge amount of satire in all this, because a part of the joke of sort of the film, I mean, it's a comedy as well as a drama and things, is that all of these kids who are involved in these riots are all white and privileged and so on and so forth, and don't represent the class that they are being allies to.
I really hated that.
Yeah, your turn.
I hated it because, ambition granted, it is a very ambitious film. It's definitely a state of the nation film. It's a very problematic in the way that it represents it being a state of the nation film, because really everything you see is ugly and violent and disrespectful and selfish, right? So it makes for a really unpleasant watch. All this wanton destruction of property and, ad hominem killing of people, if they just merely stand in your way. And it's all done in a kind of a realist vein, I think. Yeah, kind of, It is meant to be satirical and funny, but I think the tone is completely off, for most of it. I noticed you chuckled several times. Mm-hmm. I didn't at all, really.
I laughed quite a lot, and I this is interesting, because I can totally see why someone would say the tone is just miles off in this. I really thought the film had a very good control of its tone.
I didn't think it had a laugh in it. Certainly not for me. I hated the way that it ridiculed young people, right? I mean, you begin with the Joaquin Phoenix character, who's a bit of a Trumpist figure, really, right? Or, one of those MAGA people. I remember thinking during that whole discussion in the supermarket about wearing masks or not wearing masks, never once was it brought up the effects that you not wearing a mask might have on other people. It was all about the guy not wearing a mask because he had asthma or whatever, right? And no thought that you not wearing a mask, might kill someone, right? Like, so it was always like...
There was a line about if a healthy person wearing a mask is next to a person with COVID who's not wearing a mask, that person with a mask still has a 70% chance of contracting it. Someone does make that point. There is a negative externality to you not wearing a mask.
Well, but in that particular example, it's actually like a defense for not wearing masks at all.
No, in that example, it's saying you should wear a mask because you not wearing a mask puts someone who is wearing a mask still at more risk.
Oh, right, okay. I missed that.
Yeah.
It seemed to me like very one-sided and uneven, and so on. I thought the whole film, for me, kind of also failed in the sense that I think Joaquin Phoenix is kind of almost like a genius actor. I mean, I think he's really great, But if he's not given something to play, he's just dull as dishwater. I mean, I didn't enjoy watching him at all. He was completely inexpressive to me, completely boring to watch him play this role. And a lot of things just kind of didn't make sense to me, really. I mean, the relationships between, like, the mother and the daughter who thinks she might be, abused. I thought for a while I thought the Austin Butler character, I thought maybe he was implicated in all those shootings, that you never see, who's doing them as they're doing them.
No, we get an incoming flight of an anonymous, faceless terrorist group that I think is supposed to be a kind of Antifa thing. I mean, this is where, because you were saying the film was operating in a kind of realist vein, and I think it is for the most part, but then like Hereditary, it explodes into something else that is very heightened. And when you get to the kind of terrorist attack on the city, and Joaquin Phoenix stumbling around with a fucking minigun, basically, that's when we're in, okay, this is like unrealistic mode, something's really kicked off here. Although I didn't hate that as much as I didn't like it in Hereditary, and I thought it's like, I'm not sure I get what's going on here, but I think it's interesting, and I'm kind of with it.
Oh yeah, well, I wasn't with it. I mean, to be fair, I kind of... It doesn't work as a whodunit for me, but it did keep my interest up. Like, I did want to find out what happens next, and actually I was very dissatisfied with the explanation. But through most of the narrative, I was kind of interested in, finding out what was happening and who did it, right? But it's one of those films that I think, probably sees itself as progressive, but, that to me is really reactionary, and that it doesn't help explain the situation well. And also, it doesn't dramatize well. I mean, I didn't feel for Joaquin Phoenix one moment, really, even though it's all his loss and his pain and his confusion. And, I imagine that he kills the mayor out of a feeling of being disrespected, that kind of the slaps,
and things haven't gone wrong enough in his life because his wife's left him by this point as well that he snaps. But I mean, you're saying you didn't feel for him. Should you feel for him? I'm not sure you should. I think constantly he's a figure of, if not fun, at least kind of a raised eyebrow and a bit of derision. Like, I don't think we're supposed to like or side with this guy so much.
Well, he's the protagonist of the film.
Yeah.
So, if you're not siding with him or feeling sympathy for him, who are you feeling sympathy with in the film?
Well, I don't know, but I just don't think it's... I mean, maybe with his wife, but I just don't think it's automatic.
You don't know enough about the wife to feel anything for her.
I understand, but I just don't think it's an automatic thing should be taken as read that we should side with him. I think the film can be at his expense, a critique of him.
Well, I mean, he's the protagonist of the film. So if it's going to be a critique of him, you have to have a better understanding, kind of some sympathy about why he does the terrible things or the misguided things he does.
Well, that may be true too.
So I felt none of that. I thought he was just like, this boring asshole, boring, uneducated asshole, who turns violent at some point. Now, that might just be the American everyman of the moment, right? Which is a scary thought, and actually, I just hate, I really hate this American cinema that takes as per granted this selfishness, this, the fact that you can kill people and you're not meant to feel anything for them, the fact that tons of property gets destroyed everywhere, as if property doesn't matter to people. You have like people who spend like their whole life paying for their car or their house, and all of a sudden it gets blown away and you're not meant to feel anything, right? I mean, it's an ugly representation of an ugly culture, right? And I hated it.
See, I'm not sure I totally agree with that, because I think what you may, a big word to say, you may be missing, but an angle you may not have considered is that this is a critique of that ugliness, rather than just representing that ugliness in earnest itself. We get the representation of, for instance, the guy who's, when the riots are going off and property's being destroyed and he gets called out in the morning, having overslept or whatever. He winds up in the middle of the riot, and the guy whose property has been destroyed is in the background, kind of saying, like, "I'm still here." Like, but he's distracted by having to deal with all these kids who are making these points about land ownership and historic slavery and all that kind of stuff. And he's like, the real important thing that is actually the guy's been affected is off in the background, quite pointedly.
Well, no, I get that, and I get that the film is attempting, it's wanting its cake while eating it. Right, because I think it is trying to be critical of that, but it's a kind of being critical in the same way that it absolutely criticizes, and trying to be witty with it in ways that I think, this is where we talk about management of tone, because the thing where the knife goes into Joaquin Phoenix's head, spoiler, right? Like, I think it's kind of also meant to be funny, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, to me, it didn't work because you've been seeing all that happen kind of previously. And that is your protagonist, and and it is quite violent, and it just feels like one of those moments where you just kill somebody for a laugh, in a way.
It, spoiler.
Yeah. In a way that doesn't.
But that whole scene has been so heightened the whole way through. This has become this shootout with masked, black-suited, anonymous terrorists with a minigun. I was following the the heightening of the tone, and that they were sort of turning into something silly and kind of parodic. I mean, he's shooting wildly, randomly, and he shoots off the good guy's leg. It's out of nowhere. Now you can see that as tragic and ugly and things, or you can see it as it's also daft and funny, and kind of a joke.
I mean,
that this has got this far or got to this point.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's the difference between us. I heard you laughing.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't muster a laugh, really.
I mean, I do want to defend that my statement that I think the film has a good control tone, because I think that's something people will probably really disagree with.
I disagree with it.
Yeah, I know you do. And because I find myself, it's when the Austin Butler character invites himself to the home. And imposes on a dinner and that kind of thing. And then this kind of very serious conversation emerges. Like, that scene itself has these shifts in tone. It starts off as kind of imposing and dramatic, like, what is she doing bringing him here? And then it's funny, oh yeah, invite yourself in, sit yourself down. And then it shifts into more dramatic, and even more dramatic when you get talk about, abuse and repressed memories and that kind of thing. I'm thinking, this is taking me with it all the way. I was finding it really interesting, and they would do that between scenes, and then it would suddenly come out with something very funny, like when he first announces that he wants to be mayor, and Pedro Pascal comes to see him. It's set up like a Western. I mean, the film is kind of a Western in so many ways, but that scene itself is set up like a Western. It's the music is kind of I don't know what the instrument is, but it's like Western music of rattling, whatever, very light kind of minimalist thing. And he comes out, and he's across the street, and he's across the street, and then there's a bit of rubbish going across, which is like tumbleweed, and there's kind of a musical cue, and then when they get close to each other, they're at that kind of cowboy standoff distance, but there's also this joke in it, which is because it's about having to stand 2 meters apart because of COVID, which I just found like innately very funny. Even before they then said don't come closer because of 6 feet, I immediately got, this is going to be the joke here. It's very funny. There are things like that I think it's very astute at doing. As soon as he becomes a mayoral candidate, he decorates his cop car. It's a public car, it's not his personal vehicle, but he decorates it in all of this sort of conspiracy type shit. And the thing on top saying Pedro Pascal works for this man and this man works for Bill Gates.
I know.
There's a lot in the film which I think is kind of vignette-y. Like that scene in Supermarket you mentioned is kind of a vignette that almost sits on its own as just... It's kind of a slow scene. It has no real narrative drive to it. It's just how will this conversation play out sort of thing. There are elements like that, and I think the film has... So it has a good sense of just how to play a little vignette, I think, that I enjoyed. And it has a good sense of the kind of behaviours and kind of the way people present themselves that we've seen a lot of in kind of American culture over the last few years, which it does a good job of observing and representing here, I think, in quite funny ways.
I didn't think it was funny in relation to tone. It never mapped out the relationships properly. I mean, I still have questions about the whole arc of the mother, right? Like, and how it fits in. She ends up as, the director of this whole project.
Yeah, she's able to use him because he's paralysed and basically non-conscious.
Exactly.
And she's able to use him for her own ends in the end, which is to spread disinformation about coronavirus and shit.
Yeah, get a big data company in town.
Yeah, it's a happy ending, isn't it? The data center gets built. Happy ending.
Well, I think that's what's meant to be, I suppose, the critique. That the whole film is about letting, the big corporations have, like, control of the space and the energy and of the town. And I know that the film is meant to be satirical, but I really didn't like the way it was being satirical about young people protesting.
Yeah.
I didn't like the way it was being satirical about the black cop. I didn't like the way it was being satirical about the Indian cop, right? Like, I mean, it's almost like it's trying to have its cake and eat it at the same time. So, the biggest star is the MAGA sheriff, and then all the others are kind of tokens that you poke fun of and kill, right? Like, it just didn't sit well with me.
Although a sequel is set up in that the black cop, played by Michael Ward, is revealed to be alive at the end and practicing his shooting. So that boy's got revenge on his mind. But I do know what you mean. I mean, I really do know what you mean. It's at best, it's an extremely uneven film.
Yes.
To say the least. But I was really quite surprised by it. I couldn't have possibly expected half the shit it was going to do. I did not have any idea.
No.
And like you, I was constantly interested in where it was going to go because I really couldn't... I also couldn't tell how long... I didn't know how long it was. And it turns out it's about 2.5 hours. Feels like a very long 2.5 hours because so much is going on. I think some of it is very slow as well. Some of it is boring.
Yes.
But at no point could I predict where it was going, what it would do next, and when it would end. I'd be thinking, is it going to end now? Is it going to end on like this cliffhanger? No, it would keep going. It would keep going. Just like when he gets stabbed in the head, I was thinking, is that our ending? Is it a shock ending? No, we get some more.
Well, but that's not necessarily praise.
Well, I don't call it praise necessarily, but it was just a constantly interesting experience.
Well, I think that it keeps you guessing. Sometimes because you feel it doesn't know where the fuck it's going.
Well, yes.
And that it's ambitious, I agree. I mean, it is an ambitious film. I think it is a State of the Nation film. I think it is a State of the Nation film without a very good grip of what the State of the Nation is and how to dramatize it, much less, how to be funny in that dramatization. I think the film has a huge problem in how it uses its actors. Yes, I mean, I do think you needed someone with more charm, because, I mean, I have great admiration for Joaquin Phoenix, but he lacks charm. And actually, I think this partly because it is so unpleasant, or unappealing, it needs an actor with charm to carry you through. I mean, I kind of would have liked to have seen somebody like Matthew McConaughey play that exam part, yeah? You can imagine how different the film would be just, through that different type of casting. I think it's a problem to have Emma Stone play that part because, she's a huge star. Yeah, she's very appealing. And you think, what is the film going to do with her? Where is she going to reappear? Like, kind of, she appears, it seems like a substantial part, and then she doesn't really appear again until the end. I feel differently about Austin Butler because I think he's very good, and he's meant to be, just a charismatic preacher, and he plays the part, and though I still kept thinking that maybe he was behind the murders, or, he was behind, But that's okay. That could be a suspense thing to keep you wondering, right? So that didn't bother me very much, but the casting of Joaquin Phoenix and Emma Stone really did. I think they're miscast. And
Austin Butler is perfect for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think even from the first moment I saw him in a film, probably Elvis or Dune 2, I was thinking, like, this is a man who could run a cult. So, he's got that look, he's got that vibe, he can play really sleazy, and all the things that he's playing here, as his cult leader, you buy it completely. Yeah. He's perfect for it.
He's very good. But Joaquin Phoenix is a conundrum, actually, because, when he's not given a part, I mean, he can act charm, so, he was very good as Johnny Cash. He was wonderful. And he was wonderful as the Joker, I thought, right? And, he's been wonderful in many things. I mean, I saw To Die For, he's absolutely brilliant in it. But, he's doughy and dull in this film. Yeah. So I think, it's a big mistake. And I just didn't find it funny. Yeah. I mean, I could see how it was trying to be funny, but actually its attempts to be funny often translated to me as a talking down to people, right? As a kind of a minimizing people, and their condition and their feelings that I really didn't like.
I get that. So it's a mixed bag for sure. But one of the more interesting films I've seen recently, I mean, God, it tries to do a lot.
Well, I think it'll inevitably be one of those films that in 20 years' time, people will attempt to rescue or re-see or revindicate, It
does have that feeling of like Southland Tales, which was the Richard Kelly film, which was again a State of the Nation film, which at the time was panned. I mean, this I don't think is being panned. I think it's getting mixed response. Southland Tales was absolutely derided at the time, and we saw it on the podcast many, many years later. And in those, intervening years, it had a bit of, not a lot, but a bit of a reevaluation. But we saw it on Mubi when it was doing a strand of perfect failures. So there was that and Fedora and a couple of others, and it's like that's where it stands, right? This I think is better than a perfect failure, and I don't think it will go down as one of those, but it may go down as like a real oddity, and a film that bit off more than it could.
And an oddity it is, because I was also unimpressed by the visuals, right? And there were some things that I just thought, like, I'm not getting. Like, it could just be that I didn't get it. But that bit where it tries to do like a 360-degree shot, where there's the drone, on top, and then he's there with the gun, and the camera begins to to go around him, right, and then it stops, and then it goes the other way, and then it stops, and then it goes back, and it makes all these camera movements, and you're thinking, what? Like, why? What's it meant to convey? Is it just to create a physical sensation in the audience of a swoony type thing, or like, I just didn't get that moment.
I'm not sure I remember that moment exactly. Is that when they've just been blown up?
He's there with the gun. The drone is overhead. He's been shot.
This is back in the town when he's on the street.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like he's been surrounded by all of these people coming after him, and it's a kind of he's constantly looking out for where is it coming from, and I mean, like, yeah.
Well, I thought the camera was trying to do something fancy, like, a 360-degree shot. Well,
it's doing it in a kind of fancy way. But I think it conveys what it means to convey. I actually quite like the camera work and the editing in this. I thought it's a film that makes use of long take at times, and it's actually relatively inconspicuous about it, despite the fact that when you notice it, you go, oh yeah. Like, for instance, when he goes to the mayor's party because of the quote-unquote noise complaints, and he wants to intervene. The camera tracks him through the house.
Yes, I saw.
Tracks him back, and then it cuts, and then there's another long shot, and the camera moves to emphasise things. And I'm going, like, this is partly showing off, but partly subtle about it. And the framings and reframings work for this, and the showing it all in one shot works for this. And when it cuts, it needs to. I mean, it's not a film that, at its own expense, tries to show off. I think it uses its camera and editing quite effectively.
No, showing off is not quite where I was getting at, even with that comment on the 360-degree shot. I just didn't understand what it was doing with it.
You just thought it was like unmotivated?
Yeah, I did. and a bit jarring. But I also think that the rest of the film kind of visually doesn't work for me. I mean, I was trying to kind of be attentive to what it was doing visually, and I just kind of wasn't getting it really. And the representational aspects really bother me. The whole Pedro Pascal character, the fact that he is Latino, that, his son kind of visibly is, that the film is set in New Mexico, and that not more weight is given to that and to the native person. I just kind of found it all like misjudged, really, and questionable. Like, so I don't want to go and claim that only, people of a particular ethnicity can represent another. But I actually think that it's too blunt an instrument for too quick a joke from someone who doesn't have much understanding.
Fair enough. Do you think it's worse in representational terms than Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, which you really loathed on that front?
Yes, but for different reasons. I mean, I just think that at a moment where there's a real attack in the United States on black and Latino peoples, and queer peoples for that matter, by the federal government in ways that are like really abrupt and crude and violent. The idea that to protest Black Lives Matter is kind of a silly little game of spoiled white people, right? Or, that kind of Pedro Pascal being the mayor of this particular town in New Mexico, without the questions of ethnicity and loyalties and so on coming into play. I mean, I find it very kind of bothersome, really.
Yeah, I get what you mean. It's funny you mentioned sexuality.
And who is Ari Aster, by the way?
Ari Aster.
Ari Aster, sorry.
As in who, I told you the films he's made, but apart from that, I don't know, where he comes from or anything.
Right, because I'd be curious to know. Yeah. Who feels that he has the right to represent all of these people in all of these different ways, in ways that poke fun of them?
Apparently, this was going to be his first film, and then he decided, I'll make other films first. Aster was born into a Jewish family in New York City.
Okay, well, there you go. That's all the explanation you need.
I thought that'd be all we needed.
Yeah.
It's funny you mention sexuality, because that's not something that comes up in the film at all.
At all.
And you'd think that it might. I mean, I was watching an interview with Larry Charles just the other day, who is a comedy director who did a lot of Curb Your Enthusiasm, and he directed Borat and Bruno, the Sacha Baron Cohen films. And he said that because those films were Sacha Baron Cohen playing a Kazakhstani character and a gay character in candid camera situations in real life, so people weren't to know that he was playing a character. They were to take him as real. And he said that when he was playing Borat, there was sometimes the kind of hint of danger, but people would be very nice to him and understanding, and it's a different culture and stuff. But when he was playing Bruno, there was hostility and danger right from the beginning. Like, you never felt safe. Like, it's a very innate. Like, homophobia is much stronger and much more threatening than racism in his, at least in his estimation, having played these two characters.
Well, I mean, personally, I feel that's true. The difference, though, is that sexuality, and again, not to get into this, but I think it ties into all these discussions about racism and anti-Semitism, right? About how do you measure, how do you experience what but I do think that the way that I see it, and I could be wrong, but the way that I see kind of Judaism and homosexuality as having in common is that it's something that you're only vulnerable to once you make your presence as that felt. Yeah,
you can hide otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, you can choose for no one to know you're gay if you walk down the street. Yes, and actually people used to do all those things all the time. You alter your body language slightly, or you wear different clothes, or you can protect yourself in those ways. And likewise, I think no one knows you're a Jew unless you signal it, right? Yeah. Or unless, obviously, if you go to the synagogue is a place where But actually down the street, so it's different to me than kind of if your face signals it. Yeah, if your skin is black, or
sure.
yeah, it's a different type of thing because it doesn't offer you that degree of self-protection of hiding. Yeah, which of course, you know, you could argue, well, who wants to hide, whatever. Yeah, but really, when you need to, it's nice to have the option.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you might have trouble hiding, Jose.
I know. It's the bane of my life, sweetie.
Someone just has to make a joke. You've got to find something funny, and you laugh, and people go, "Oh, that man's gay."
Yeah. It's true. It's always been true.
Anyway,
so,
interesting film, and I mean, for better or worse, I think people should see it.
I'm glad I saw it, though I think it's dull, it's really questionable, and it really riled me up in ways, like I was hearing you laugh, and I could see why you were laughing, you know, but it was almost like, you know, you have those moments where I'm not fucking going to laugh at that.
Yeah. Made you angry that I was having such a good time.
No, it didn't make you angry. It didn't make me angry that you were having a good time. But, you know, so I was acknowledging that you were having a good time, and I was aware of why you were having a good time. But the film, for some reason, was so offensive, or it hit kind of a particular nerve, that I was just ready to resist it in every way possible.
I've felt like that before. I'm totally with you. It's a very personal response, and you get that way sometimes. And I don't mean to diminish it. I'm not saying like that's just your personal response. You've got your reasons.
Yeah.
But it's just
no, but it is also. I mean, I acknowledge that it is a personal response. You know, and someone might not care about those things. Like,
I don't.
Yeah, but, you know, I know you don't care about racism and, you know, Latinos
Big fan
and
of
Native
racism.
people. And
Anyway,
an interesting film, though, I agree. And an ambitious film, for sure. So I suppose I would recommend that people see it, really, even though I don't like it and it riled me up no end. So that's my...
Yeah, it's a film about a divisive America that seems like it'll divide people now.
Yes, it's divided us. Yeah. So thank you very much for listening. We're eavesdropping at the movies, and we are on
Apple Podcasts, Audible, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, and YouTube Music. On social media, we're on Facebook and Twitter at Eavesdrop Movies, and Blue Sky, eavesdropping.bsky.social, and the website is eavesdroppingatthemovies.com.
Thank you very much for listening.
Bye-bye.